So we're going to use the cake spatula to get into some of the connective tissue and the myofascial release. So first of all, just see what it feels like actually to have the flat edge, and just have a sensation of the grip of the rubber of the spatula sliding up and down. So actually put your hand on your, so instead of having your arm up, so get yourself into a comfortable position in kneeling, and literally we are rolling up and down initially, and you may feel, so rest your arm down on your leg. So let's start on the back. We're doing the extensors to start off with. So just slide that spatula. Okay. And then slowly, what we're going to do, so I'm being quite prescriptive here, so we're working on the extensors, gang. Okay, so take the spatula down towards the wrist, and now we're going to do a little bit of a pin and stretch. So angle the spatula in. If you want to get nearer to see me, okay, if you need to get nearer to see me or whatever, or but that's it. So now we're doing a local pin and stretch. You're angling the spatula in, it's not completely flat. And work your way up the whole of the back of the arm. Can you feel how super grippy that is, yeah? Quite grippy. And then slowly, so we're just going to avoid the carpal tunnel here. You don't want to be applying stacks of pressure into this spot here because it's sort of like an open space. And then slowly, we're going to come into some wrist extension. So you're angling, okay, so again, be quite prescriptive. Get near if you can't see. You're angling the spatula. So we're then pinning and stretching. So this is decompressing the tissue. It's creating a little bit of space. That's it. So these rounded sort of spatulas are really nice with a sort of fairly rounded edge. You don't want it to feel too sharp. Okay. And then let the spatula sort of grip into you and slowly start doing some little circles. So let it. So this is why, dependent on the tool, it's going to feel hopefully not too sharp. Work your way up into the elbow joint. And then perhaps now take a little bit more sharpness, so you're coming through at a stronger angle, and do a little bit of a scrape. You might find that the tissue begins to come up a little bit pink. So it's up to you where you angle the spatula in. Can you see the skin's coming up a little bit pink? So some of it may feel quite scrapey, so you don't want to feel like you're trying to shear your skin off your flesh, but you may also feel that you're coming across a few areas that feel a little bit bubbly. Now everybody's different with their soft tissue tolerance, so it's not no pain, no gain, because we like a soft tool, but some of you may feel like you like a little bit more stimulation, and you can see that it's going to be coming up a little bit pink. But often the areas that feel really glued and tacked down, you've got more adhesions and knots into. So just have a little look for a second and just look. Does one area of your arm look a bit pinker? Now, for instance, just turn your arm around a little bit and perhaps do a little bit of flexion and extension. And do one wrist and the other, and begin to notice, does that already, with the ability to flex and extend, does it feel smoother? Does it already feel smoother? May do. Little bit. Okay, so let's just continue. So now with this, so just for a second, take a different tool. So if you take the metal spoon, so sometimes you may find that you can sort of push the flesh. So again, let's think about planes of movement. Now a spoon is going to feel quite different. Again, I'm just propping my hand up on my arm, so I'm not holding my arm up. So you may then want to try and pin the spoon and then pronate and supinate the arm. So you're then beginning to cross fibre. Now for me, that feels nice because the spoon is nice and cool, but personally, I would rather have the grip and the grab and the shearing action. So this is your chance to sort of explore a little bit. I've also got like a wooden butter scraper. Now that's too smooth, but it feels quite nice. So I could locally use that again to pin and stretch. So ideally, I think the cake spatula probably works pretty well, but have a little go. Okay, you might find that the across this retinaculum, this cuff, use a baby spoon. So right across the back of the wrist, you actually have this cuff that sort of anchors the tendons. So you may want to, that's going to feel quite sharp and a little bit abrasive, okay? So the tendency for those of you who like pain and feel that you need that to be feeling like it's doing something, do this at your own risk, should I say. You might feel good now, but you could feel a bit tender afterwards. But again, we're trying to get into this ability, so work across the back of the wrist, but just be a bit mindful about pinning too much here. So just try and avoid this little carpal tunnel here, but begin to work up, okay, sort of into the lateral bones. Okay. Right, let's just continue up the arm a little bit. So I've definitely decided that the cake spatula, but of course what happens is your other hands get a bit uncomfortable. So perhaps then do a few little spirals and circles with this cake spatula. So as you're doing that and having a bit of an explore of your soft tissue, okay, again, feel the difference, just give yourself a bit of a break from the grip, and then see what it feels like to perhaps use a spoon. So, you know, we've got many more soft tissue tools, haven't we, nowadays? Lots of people are using silicone cake baking things. So silicone probably is good because you get that grip, providing you've got a silicone allergy. So have an explore. And then what we can also do is then anchor, pull the flesh upwards as we come into some extending of the arm and the elbow. Perhaps use that so you're pinning down, so you can also do a pin and stretch. So it's similar, gang. Okay, so those of us who obviously use things like the yoga tune-up balls, you know, this is a similar practice, isn't it? But not everybody. Sometimes you haven't got the balls with you. Sometimes people want to be able to do the myofascial stuff without using the yoga tune-up balls. So really, it's a similar practice, isn't it? You can sort of anchor, pin, use your soft tissue tool. So again, then we're pinning and stretch. Pin, stretch, pin, stretch, and then work up the other way. So literally lengthen the arm across, pull it across the body, work it up round. So again, you're just stimulating all of these different sense receptors. See what it feels to come square into the flesh. See what it feels to come in at a bit of an angle. Some of it will feel smoother, easier. Again, let's just take a bit of a breather, work that arm forwards and backwards. See how you feel now in that one arm that you've just done compared to the arm that you haven't. Does that feel? Let's perhaps come into weight bearing for a second. Again, just have a sense of, actually just come up into your down dog and just see how that feels now in terms of your ability to, let's just do this incrementally. So does that feel any more grounded? Does that actually feel any more comfortable in that side? So just come down and let me know. Bit easier, okay. Let's just do a little bit more on this side. I'm just keeping an eye on what we're doing time-wise. So we're going to continue. So coming to camera. So that's it, just find yourself in a comfortable point of sitting. So we're going to continue either with the cake spatula and begin to work down the base of the thumb. Okay, so I'm just going to hold my hand up, but you keep your hand. So you can sort of, again, just use that spatula to come in at a bit of an angle. I would be tempted to rest your hand on a brick. Yes, that if you get sore fingers and you want to apply a little bit of pressure, try the teaspoon. You know, that feels a bit diggy and a bit pokey. The broader spoon for me feels quite nicer. I prefer a broader spoon to try and actually get into the base of your thumb, your thinner eminence. But personally, the shearing of the good old cake spatula, quite a small one, so you want one with quite a fat edge. So can you see that's got quite a fat edge? Some of them are really silicone but really thin. Let's have a little look. Just hold your tools up to the camera so I can see. Yeah, you want that quite nice fat edge, don't you? So. Now slowly work your way down the fingers. And as you do, you're going to be, if you scrape your fingers down, it's going to blanch. You're going to see that it's gone white and then pink as you're sort of manipulating the circulation really. And then scrape across the base of the thumb joints, base of the finger. And then go slowly across the back of the hand. And then begin to rub side to side across. Work your way down your fingers. And if you come across some nodules that feel a little bit tight and uncomfortable, perhaps do a few little circles. Work your way up and down each finger. Really try and get into so you're again just really locally mobilizing some of this tissue and just noticing, does some of it feel a bit, you can use the spatula into this webbing. Really nice to get into the webbing again. Think about all of the gripping we're doing with all the stuff that we're doing. So use that to sort of mobilize into the webbing. And grip. See how that feels. Guess what? We need to do the other arm, don't we? If you've got your watch on, perhaps take your watch off. Let's start again. So now also if you look at the tissue, so first of all, just look at your arm. Now, I happen to have fairly, my skin is a bit dry, it feels a bit tacked down, it feels a bit glued down. But if I look at one arm compared to the other, one almost looks slightly more puffed up. In fact, you know, it may affect your skin. You might, if you look at your arm, you may feel that it almost looks more hydrated. May or may not. Mine certainly looks a bit different. Okay, so let's again start with this sort of angle of, try it flat initially. And as you try it flat, you may feel like you're coming across bubble wrap. So I'm just going to hold my arm down. Now, if you're pulling faces and you're pulling and yanking too hard, I want you to look really relaxed in your face. Okay, so some of you are going, please back off. And also, right, the tendency is to scrape. Barely touch the skin. So this is also, so we've been focusing more about the mobilizing, but see what it feels like just to touch the skin. Now also, because the spatula is probably getting a little bit warmer, it may also have your body oil on it, so you might want to just give it a wipe. So how does it feel when you go really gently? I know I didn't mention this with the other arm, so go really gently at an angle. Go flat. Let's try a little bit of a pin and stretch with the spatula flat. So you want to be comfortable in your shoulders. I've only got my arm up because of the camera view, okay, gang? So you can be having your arm further down. So you're doing a local pin and then you're stretching. Then let's slowly begin to perhaps cross fiber where you're then turning the palm up, palm down. Again, I would probably have the arm down rather than holding it up to do it. You can quite easily hold the arm down to do it. If it's more comfortable for you to stand up because you're sitting position, you might want to just lift the camera. So you just need to do what you need to do, really. Okay, so but be comfortable. Main thing is you're not holding too much tension in your neck and shoulders as you're doing it. And then perhaps do a few little circles. So again, locally, you're just trying to get into some of those knots and adhesions. So come down across the back of this retinaculum. So try, just take your hand away for a second and use your fingers. So sometimes you don't even need, you could just use your thumb. Again, it's a bit like giving yourself a Chinese burn. I mean, you know, what we have at the end of our arms, if we're lucky enough not to have any amputations, is we've got our thumbs. But of course, thumbs often ache. So using a soft tissue tool means that sometimes you can actually spread the load and take the load out. So do you get the, you get the idea, don't you? So really it's this ability to grip, shear. So if you can use your hands, that's great, but sometimes for some people that's just too uncomfortable, hence using the soft tissue tool. Okay, let's come into some wrist extension. Oh, I've got a lovely cracking bruise. I'm just going to put my arm down because my arm's a bit uncomfortable from being in that position. Okay, but again, just try and pin locally, shear, rub, and try a different tool. Okay, so at the moment that feels really nice. The coolness of the spoon feels quite nice, and it shears and mobilizes your tissue in a slightly different way, doesn't it? If you've got a huge, you could have a big soup ladle, couldn't you? So it may not feel as effective, but we've got thousands and thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of different receptors embedded in our skin. Different things are responding to pressure, temperature, vibration. And some of them are going to be going, oh wow, I'm waking up. I'm feeling stimulated, or I'm feeling calmed down. Okay. Come back to the silicone spatula, perhaps give yourself a little bit of a round the back of the deltoids, a bit of shearing, perhaps a little bit of tricep, again some pin and stretch with the triceps. But again, just try and do it so you're not holding yourself really tight. So see what it feels to come through at a slightly different angle. Again, local pin and stretch. Of course, what happens is we're having to grip quite hard, aren't we, with our hands, so you just have to sort of take a bit of time. Right, and also if you get uncomfortable in a position, so my feet are beginning to get a bit uncomfortable, so I'm going to change position. Right, so let's again come into getting into the hands. Bit of shearing, and again those are very similar, so it's similar, isn't it? So the silicone or the rubber feels super grippy. I would still say my favourite tools are the yoga tune-up balls. They are just so pliable, portable and wonderful, and they fit into nice spaces. But when you're in your holiday cottage and you've not taken them with you, or you're standing in the kitchen and you've got 5 minutes, grab a cake spatula, grab a teaspoon. Perhaps that sort of suits you. You might feel that you want to sort of come through and again a bit of an angle, perhaps with a teaspoon. And a teaspoon mimics thumb pressure. The edges can be a bit sharp, so you might want to have a teaspoon that feels a bit fatter. Wooden tool. So it's not how much can I feel it. Going back to the soft tissue tool, sometimes it's literally just trying to slide the first layer on the second layer. So does that feel quite nice? Hopefully going down your fingers a little bit, yeah? So again, if you've got an area that feels a little bit noduly, then you want to not try and dig in and gouge it out, but have a little go at perhaps just, and that's where a nice soft tissue tool coming across the sides of the joint. Perhaps you can do an economy of effort and slide the spatula across all of the fingers at once. Literally, the action of actually sliding your finger onto the grip of the spatula, where, again, you're getting some grip, aren't you? Almost getting into the edges and the nooks and crannies. Get into the base of the fingers. And give yourself a little bit of a breather, just for a second. So just waggle your fingers, perhaps come into a few little circles, do some flexion and extension. Hopefully that's already feeling lighter and freer, a little bit lighter and freer. Okay, let's just take your stuff off the mat. let's begin to come into this position again. Work your way around your hands, so slow it down, see how that feels. Perhaps have a little bit of a bounce. Imagine you're sort of bouncing onto something that's quite hot. That may already feel that you've actually got a little bit more ability to bounce. Come onto the knuckles, see how that feels with being able to sort of actually wait there. Again, just listen to your body, but just sort of see what that's given you. Does that feel easier? Does it feel almost like you've taken the stone out of your shoe, so to speak? Let's bring ourselves down into down dog again. So come into 4-point kneeling, quadruped, tuck the toes under. Let's push ourselves back. So really we've done very little. I know it may have seemed to have taken a little bit of time, but we've done very little. We've done a bit of forearm, we've done hands, we've done wrists. We haven't really got up into the shoulders, but just see how that feels for you now. Bend one leg. The weight will sort of transfer slightly differently over into the shoulders and the hands. Again, just see how that is. That may have given you something a bit different, and just come back down. Oops. So come back down and just let me know if that, or just sort of get a sense of if that actually already feels easier. You might think, God, that feels freer. Let's come up to standing. So, whoops, let me move the camera. So come onto the wall, and now see what your ability is like now to, just going to end that recording there.